Capacity, recording on Zoom, Grimsmo.
Julie, this is Business of Machining, episode 14, coincidentally on 4/14.
Haha.
Do you want me to clap?
Yeah, go for it.
Clapping on 3, 1, 2, 3. I have no idea whose turn it is.
Yeah, I'll go.
La la la.
Yeah. All right. Good morning, everybody. I am fired up on this Friday morning to talk to my good friend, John Saunders. My name is John Grimsmo.
Oh, and I am John Saunders, and that's an aggressive introduction. I like that.
I'm feeling good.
Good.
Yeah.
What's up?
No, I just woke up, kind of slept past my alarm, kind of groggy, like, oh, I don't want to be in this bad mood for the podcast. I want to be good and fired up.
Right.
And then I just had a good morning after that, talked to Meg, and things are really good.
Nice. Meg is your wife. What'd you talk about?
We talked about, it's just nice to talk to someone like in the morning before heading out to work. Just kind of talked about what's going on today for me, and kids are off today. It's Easter holiday, so.
It's tough. I've had, my wife it's funny, I was actually thinking about doing a chip break on some of the good advice I've received in my life. And one of them is marry for love. And I think you and I are both, I'm super lucky. I love my wife. She's supportive. She's great. She's driven, but I love everything about our marriage. I will say, having 2 kids now, I wish I got as much attention, because I miss having that person to talk to. Nobody knows you as well. They've been through the story. And I miss having somebody, whether it's her advice, whether it's just a sounding board, whether it's whatever. So how the heck did you get Meg to give you undivided attention this morning? Tell me your secrets.
Claire's still sleeping. She woke up, but I got her back to sleep, and Leif is just on his own. So we had 20 minutes of undivided talking time, which was really good. But I think you and I are in a very similar boat, where I've been with Meg now for 15 years. And Claire is now 7, so a good chunk of that time was just the 2 of us.
Right.
And I totally understand with what you're saying is like we've had so many years together where it's just us.
Yeah.
And you kind of expect that to continue throughout life, but then we've got 2 kids now, and it just gets busy. It changes. It evolves, right?
Right, but I'm very I think I've been thinking this week about part of what makes an entrepreneur, and I think to some extent you've got to be I don't know what the adjective is. It's not narcissistic, but you have to believe in yourself and your vision. And I balance that with also self-confidence questions of where do you struggle? What are you not sure about? Because I don't have that bold, crazy feelings or sentiments that some entrepreneurs that are just and I'd always wonder how much of it is a facade versus how much of it is real.
Right.
But some people it is real for sure. But for me, basically, if I need to talk about something, I sort of go into this. Switching the crayons to markers is not as important right now as being able to stop and listen to this thing I want to talk to you about. And that's not how life works. I will tell you, a mother is not very sympathetic to that debate.
Right, because there's always so much going on.
Right.
Yep. No, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, as you said about some people just kind of putting on the facade, I mean, entrepreneurship is not easy. It's freaking hard, and it's taxing, and it's, I've never been a very self-confident person. I've always been self-conscious and always worried about what other people think, and never been super sure of what I'm doing. More so now than ever, I think, I'm more confident now than I've probably been in the past.
As you should be, John. I mean, you've deserved it. You've earned it. I don't know how many people around you tell you that, but what you have done is incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and you as well. I mean, it's really fun to share the journey together. You and I chat about this and grow together, and we're not done growing anywhere near.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's exciting to think about.
When I had a really tough day Wednesday, which I'll happy to get into, but every once in a while, if I need to, I'll just be like, okay, well, rewind 2 years or rewind 10 years. And it's like, would you rather have gone a different direction? You know, today stinks, today sucks. You know, how can you fix that? But then also like, well, would I? No, absolutely not. Like not even remotely close. You know, so yeah, you have your ups and downs, but life is good. We're both, I like to sometimes tell people we were all born, this I guess has a little bit of a different tweak because you're Canadian, but I say people here, you were born in the best country in the world at one of the best times in the history of civilization with the highest standard of living, with access to the most amazing stuff. Like this is, you got to keep it in perspective.
Totally. Yeah, it's the best time to be alive.
Yeah, life is good.
It's hard to remind ourselves of that sometimes.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
Right, and it's just incredible. So we had an employee start on Monday. I don't remember, did I mention it on the podcast yet?
I'm not sure yet. Is this Julie?
This is Julie.
Go on.
And in a very sort of funny and awkward way, Julie will be editing this podcast. So, I'm super excited. She has been working sort of on the side, whatever you want to call that, consultant or just part-time freelance, helping with editing some stuff and including these podcasts and some of the video stuff. And I gotta say, like, it's great. It's such a breath of fresh air. She is as passionate about video making and editing and nerding out on cameras and all that as you and I are CNC stuff. So I love that model of entrepreneurship. It reminds me very much of your saying of I want to be able to do anything, but that doesn't mean I should do everything. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, hey, I've been making these videos, 700 videos over 10 years. Like, I know what I'm doing, and now to hand it off to somebody and see them on day one do it so much better is great. But it's great. But I know what I need to bring to the table. You know what I mean? Even 2 years ago, I actually brought somebody in to help film, and it didn't work, and I wasn't comfortable justifying. Our business wasn't there to support it, and blah blah blah. So
yeah, so you're kind of awesome. You're soured of the whole outsourcing thing. Like, I had the same thing. Like 2 years ago, I had a video editor do a lot of my work, and it worked all right, but there were these barriers back and forth, and it cost money and all this stuff, and right. So I stopped it over a year ago, and now I'm slightly soured of the whole thing. Like, I would love to have somebody come in and hire them full time and do what you're doing now with Julie, but you can be my test subject and see how it works out.
Well, and so that's the thing, like, when Julie was part-time, or when she was working on her own, which is something I absolutely insist for oh my gosh, there's so much good stuff here. I just was talking with another entrepreneur. What a great conversation. He was like, anybody who tells you, any company that brags about never having laid somebody off, like, run away. It's not personal. A business is like, and I'm mediocre on analogies, but it works well here. A business is like a fruit tree. You have to prune the tree. It's for the betterment of you as the owner, you as the employee, you as the customer, you as a shareholder, you as a stakeholder. There's no such thing as just like cramming people in and making it fit and just believing that because you've never laid somebody off or fired somebody that means it was the right decision. People don't always fit. The things don't always work out. And so for me, like, I don't really have the luxury of nobody likes firing. But so for me, basically the idea was work with somebody first, give them a test run, see how how does it, filming with somebody or working with somebody is a really intimate, you know this, you have a small shop,
yep.
How you work with people is very intimate. So she worked for, 4 or 5 months, I think, maybe not that long. Anyway, to me, it became a no-brainer. She's got the right attitude, she's sharp. She I think is going to be able to work independently, which is all great. On the other hand, Wednesday was tough. I mean, we were filming together, and it was actually not so much that. It was just like all the interruptions, all of the phone calls. All that stupid stuff that happens as an entrepreneur, and it got me frustrated.
Yep. So how do you get over that? Where do you go from there?
I think I did. My mistake was probably not doing a good enough job of recognizing, hey, I need to carve out some onboarding time. I had kind of, maybe I'm not going to change. I'm always going to try to fit more than I probably should in a day, or I'm probably always going to try to set the bar a little bit too high. And I think it's hypocritical of me because I'm also a big fan of like, hey, stack the deck in your favor. And what I could have done and should have done probably is said, hey, we've got a couple videos in the buffer and I don't have any job I need to run today. Just turn everything else off. I could even turn my phone off, which sounds crazy, but I could. The world will not end, you know?
Right.
I'm not going to lose new business or upset anybody. It may be a little inconvenient, and to some extent you're going to create a little headache for that night or the next day because you're going to be behind on other stuff. But hey, what matters is, I think the takeaway is also, if you're going to do something, do it well, Yeah,
and be able to focus on it. When you're stretched too thin, you're not being as effective on everything.
Yeah, multitasking. The more I do in life, the more I realize that multitasking is a bunch of baloney.
I totally agree. I was just reading an article about that yesterday in Modern Machine Shop.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think the latest one.
I don't know if I have that.
I forget it's got an EDM picture on the front.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just really, really on point. Like multitasking is, a lot of people think they do it well, but in truth, you can only work on one thing at one time. And the fact is, if you're jumping from one thing to the next, then it's just not full focus.
But like I've even learned, I would multitask just because time is so precious. So like when I'm waiting for my QuickBooks statements to download, I'll Alt-tab into another screen and try to like bang through a couple of more notes on something.
Yep.
And even that creates this like staccatoed, disruptive, I think I'm being more productive, but I'm really not. And so that's crummy multitasking, but then also big picture multitasking where I'm like proofing cam for 5 minutes and then I'm going out and looking at a setup part and then I'm thinking about just stop. I've been trying to do this a little this week of like, I'll look up and I'll say, okay, just spend 20 minutes and ignore everything else. Ignore your emails, and it's funny because when you have 20 minutes of uninterrupted stuff, it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And especially critical things like proofing out code on the machine. The last thing you want to do is crash the machine because you're thinking of something else.
Do you proof out code at the controller?
Well, no, but
okay.
There are safety precautions you can make, like do things properly and the right way. And
right.
Don't just run it blindly and hit cycle start, lead into it and slow it down a bit.
Well, no, but this is kind of curious because when we're doing something new, I will slow down my rapids.
Yep.
I really don't do that much single blocking. I'll do for sure option stop, so it stops between tools in case I'm not standing in front of the machine. But really, I check distance to go on the first couple tools, and then I don't do that much.
Yeah, that's about what I do too. But
okay.
It's easy to forget to do that even sometimes if you're too stretched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I emailed my Haas AE guy, and he wrote back right away with some tips on writing that code. I don't know what you call it, macro variable code, to basically confirm that your x-axis position, G54X value, has changed relative to the last part. It's so easy. Like maybe everybody does this, and I just didn't know it. But I feel like people don't do this, and stuff like that. When you're not taking advantage of it, to me that's so powerful. Fairness, I haven't done it this week. I haven't implemented it yet, but it looked so easy that I actually put it off because I was like, that's so easy. I'm not even going to go worry about it as a project.
Yeah, it's a 2-minute job. I'm going to do it when I need to do it.
Right.
No, I totally agree. And hearing to my applications engineers, it sounds like in the greater scheme of things, nobody takes advantage of macro programming. Very, very, very few people actually do.
Right.
And these are the guys that go out and train everybody. And when they see me playing with it and diving into it and geeking out about it as much as they do, they're very happy and proud that I'm taking advantage of what's available. And the past week and a half, I've dove deeper into macro variables and statements and programming and stuff. And it's like the world is opening up, and I'm seeing new possibilities. And you just think about, thinking about machining in a completely different way.
How is this on the lathe?
Both.
Oh, really?
Because I have FANUC controllers on both machines, so they're the same. And it's applicable to both.
Are they different FANUC controllers, or are they actually literally the same?
They're they're quite different.
Okay.
But macro kind of stuff is the same, and yeah.
So what's the good anecdote there? What's the good learning takeaway?
Simple things. I think I mentioned this maybe a couple weeks ago, but tracking tool life based on every pallet that I run, it goes variable 801 for tool number 1 plus 1.
Right.
So every time it runs a pallet, that tool gets a plus 1, plus 1, plus 1. And then when it breaks or wears out or whatever, I can look and be like, oh, that tool just ran 14 pallets as of April 1st. And then I know, okay, that lasted me 2 weeks and 14 pallets. And now I put that into variable 901 that says 14 as my max. So I can have a thing that says, if variable 901 equals greater than or equal to 14, replace the tool now before even running the program. Like replace it early and safely. And that's just one minor little thing. Like on the lathe, I'm doing some much more complicated variable programming with the probe, where I go in, I probe it. If it's too big, I spit it out. If it's too small, I spit it out, and then I just move on to the next part.
Yeah, it's working.
It's working great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
so
cool.
I ran the lathe all day Friday night. Like I left, and I put a new bar in as I left, and I knew it was going to run for 7 hours, and it ran every single part. It spit out 4 parts out of 150.
Yes.
Yeah, it was,
That's
and they're
cool.
all on spec, and they're all measured and documented, and I have a text file that has the size of every single one, and it's like, oh my God, it's so perfect.
And you're checking them with a mic, and they're on?
Yep.
What you're back to holding a few tenths then?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of fine tuning too that still needs to be done, like probing and offsetting, like probing every part for size and then offsetting the machine to compensate, like thermal growth, tool wear, whatever. Doing it every time becomes chasing your tail.
Okay, too iterative?
Yeah, it's too much. So I've got a macro that says it's a looping counter that plus 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can say every 5th part probe for coordinate system offset, and every 10th part probe for tool wear, and then start the counter again. And
Are you still QCing every part in the machine?
Yep.
Okay, so
Exactly. So I am probing every single part, but I'm only offsetting every 5 or 10.
Right.
And it's working great.
I kind of, it's sometimes you got to like stop and think big, which I don't do a good job of. But with some of the parts that we're making now, I was like, okay, so stop. What do I want? Like, what would I snap my fingers and want? And I was like, what I want, and I guess I'm ashamed to admit it because I feels like I'm succumbing to being a big manufacturer type person mentality, but I want to take every part off my machine, turn around, put it in another machine, which I guess is going to be a CMM, which I can't afford, and have every part checked.
Yeah.
Like I don't, there's no more reason to, the labor and ambiguity of hand checking stuff, the hassle factor of a height gauge, the fact that you don't get the, everyone I've talked to calls it statistical process control, but whether you're serializing the parts or not, if you are serializing the parts, then you now have a database that's trackable, which means, part number 12244 had this spec sheet on it of, coming off of my Mitutoyo CMM or whatever you have.
Yep.
That to me is power.
Yep. And traceability and documentability.
Ends up that CMMs are really expensive.
Yeah. What about the cheaper Faro arms? I don't know much about them, but
they're like plus or minus a few thou.
yeah, okay, that's no good.
And they're not, you still got to operate it by hand. I mean, I started looking at CMMs, and you can get a used one for 15 to 20 grand, which I thought, ooh, that's a lot. That's even expensive.
Yeah.
And ends up that's manual. So you're moving the thing around yourself, which is absurd. Like, I'm not saying it's not valuable, but no, like I want to, and I think I've spoiled because on the factory tours and things we've done, I've always seen the automated ones that move around like a CNC machine, and they can even re-articulate the Renishaw probe tip, different degrees of probe side bores. And short answer, a medium like size one, so maybe 20 or 30 inch travel area with automated stuff would be like 150 grand.
Yeah, that's a whole nother machine right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got some thinking to do.
Yeah. Well, so of course my next search was DIY CMM, and the problem is you've got some. It's funny. I wish. Part of me was thinking about it. I think there probably is an opportunity for a. It's tough because no one's going to spend 5 figures if it's sort of accurate. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I feel like you could get something that's well in, a thou or better maybe for way less. And I was kind of like, man, is that enough? Well, hey, there you go, folks. If you're listening to this podcast and it goes back to what entrepreneurship is. It's execution, not ideas. There's an idea to sell. The cheapest CMM I found, Fowler came out with one that's a quasi-portable that is 40 grand. So cut that in half. It doesn't have to be portable. The piece of granite's not expensive. The hardware is not that expensive.
You're
There's
right.
some code to write, but you buy the right quality ground screw, and it doesn't have to be hard. It could be a lead screw, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be a ball screw.
Well, it has to have no backlash, but the whole system doesn't have to be very rigid. It can't move,
Correct.
but there's no cutting force.
Right.
And there's
Right.
no spindle, and it doesn't need to weigh like 10,000 pounds.
Right.
That's kind of fascinating. All you need is like really tight, precise motion.
Right. Yep. You could even potentially, this would be a huge sacrifice, but you could even potentially deal with the backlash. I'm thinking out loud here by always having it go back, basically always doing positive measuring, maybe. So could you have it? It wouldn't work for bores.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Anyways, there's an opportunity out there, seriously, because there's a lot of, the software could be done for sure. Anyways.
And you'd need a good quality probe, either buy one or make one. They're not difficult to make. They're just difficult to make well.
Yeah, but so Tormach has 2 probes, a passive and active, and I want to say, what did I hear? I just learned from somebody on the Facebook page that one of those probes is actually what one of the major companies, I think maybe Renishaw, although I don't want to misspeak here, uses for some of its lower cost Asian products. Like, I think you could get within a thou with something like that. Mm-hmm. Or it could be an add-on. You could buy a higher quality one.
Right, if you build the machine to be as tight, as rigid as possible.
Right.
And then the cost goes on the base of the probe, like the accuracy of the probe.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Something about, like, that would work well for kind of 2D positioning. To do 3D measurement, if you wanted to measure a weird surface, it has to take into account the sphere of the ball and where it's touching on the ball. I was thinking about that the other day.
Right. But you could get by with a dumb one if it just does displacement of the ball and it doesn't know which way it was displacing it.
Exactly. Yeah. For any 2D kind of like bores, pockets, corners, things like that, that would work great.
But gosh, I kind of think that's what most of people need to do.
Yeah. Although from a practical standpoint, your Haas with the Renishaw would work just as well, if not better, if you trusted it.
Right. I need to do more testing. Actually, that's something I want to do, which is set up some known diameter stuff and then probe it and make sure. I don't have as much confidence as I wish I had with but mostly just been spooked by what we talked about, I think, last week, which is sort of the ambiguity of measurements on angular offsets.
Yep. Right, the G68 thing.
Right.
Yep. But sometimes it's just testing, and your personal hesitation is not fully understood. When I was working on the lathe probe and even doing stuff on the mill, like you don't fully understand it, so you don't trust it. Therefore,
exactly.
But once you dive deeper into it, you're like, oh, that's why it does that. Okay, I get it now.
Like, I want to set up a basic trigonometry worksheet, and I want to put a part with a set of, I want to intentionally put a part at like 1.6 degrees, confirm that with an indicator, and then G68 it, and I want to write down what that angle is going to be before it does it and have it match. That's all I need to do.
You should machine a triangle.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Duh. Thank you.
And then probe it to check, and then see. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Thank you for. I literally would have gone over and set up an angle block. Yeah. I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change pace a little bit once I find my list. So it finally happened.
What?
One of our fans got a Norseman tattoo on his arm.
Stop.
Yes, like large on his forearm. The Norseman is kind of the iconic first knife we've made.
Of the look of the knife and the blade?
The whole blade handle combination, honeycomb pattern, sort of an artistic rendering of it. I'll send you a picture of it. It's insane.
Can we post the picture?
Yeah, we can do that. I think I'm going to post it on my Instagram as well.
Okay, we'll put a link in the video description, folks, to the Instagram post for John. That's crazy.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's like mind-blowing. And he's not even a customer. He doesn't own a knife. He wants to one day. He just loves the brand, loves the knife, wanted it on his body forever. It's crazy. It's mind-blowing to think about.
That is insane.
Yep.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know what to think of it. Like it's mind-boggling that somebody would do that, but it kind of proves that the brand is working and people are becoming very happy with what we're doing.
Do you have any tattoos?
I don't. Eric has 2, and he's thought about getting our Norseman, like our Viking head logo.
Right.
Even I've considered it, but I'm not really a tattoo guy.
Right.
But like you don't have any tattoos, do you?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah, I'm not nearly cool enough for a tattoo.
No, like you and I, the same way. But
right.
I've never really considered a tattoo. But I could maybe consider doing my Viking head logo now, because even if the business dissolves and we move on to something else, like this was a solid time period in our lives that I'd be happy to have documented like on my body forever.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know, it's just weird.
Yeah.
It's all the typical, whatever. Yeah. Good for you, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
My little win of the week was we took Tuesday off and went to a Skills Ohio or Skills USA competition. But it's pretty awesome. It was a group of, 30 or 40 students, high school students, who were in machining competitions. So they went up and had to do, there was a lathe, you could either do a lathe or mill test, and then there was a written test on general machining and CNC stuff, and then there was a measurement test where you had a bunch of different parts and a bunch of different tools, feeler gauges and angle gauges and mics and calipers to measure parts on the table. And it was really cool. I mean, I think the fact that stuff exists is great and gives kids a chance to feel like they're part of something and working toward it. And this was state level competition, so these kids had already, I think, won local or regional stuff. On the flip side, I feel very mixed about there's a lot to be said for having the capability to write hand G-code, and I'm not knocking it, but if you only have so much time to learn, I'm just going to say it, I don't think that's where you should be focusing your time. I just don't. Mm-hmm. And it's not, I'm not trying to make a statement admonishing hand G-code, but what I'd rather is somebody, I just look at everyone you and I know, as well as you, as well as our own stories, and what I care about would be your ability and confidence to pull up in a book or the web and look something up. Like, I remember the first time I had to troubleshoot a G76. I'd never seen G76 before. Yep. I had threaded so many times, and I had no idea that's even what the code was. I don't care. But when I had trouble with it, I had the confidence to type that in, pull up a spec sheet, look through the parameters, and fix it. That's what matters. Not that I could whip it out, right?
Yep. It's that whole, research knowledge, book learning versus knowing about it and knowing how to find it and knowing how to learn it and going from there. Right. I will say for lathe machining, I'm very happy that I know how to write G-code by hand, or at least edit it and know what I'm seeing, or be able to research what a G76 is. Right. Because I do a lot of hand tweaking, even on my Nakamura. For lathe code. For the mill, almost never. But yeah, lathes are just like that.
Yeah, no, and again, I think I wish I knew it better. I really do. I actually told, when they asked me to judge, I was asking what's that involved in that, and they said grading hand G code. And I looked at them and I'm like, I can't do that. Like I'm not even embarrassed to say that. I wish I could. And don't get me wrong. I wish there are a lot of things I wish I could do, but the reality is you got to run a business and stay focused. And I don't think that's the top skill set. Yeah.
So the real question is, how would you have done in these competitions?
Well, so that goes back to something else, which is, okay, for people that were taking this test or participating in it.
They're students, right?
They're students, right?
Yeah.
It's very clear what's going to happen. Like, it's not a surprise. You don't know what you're going to get. You know you're going to get a lathe part. It's going to have some OD profiling, some ID boring, some threading. Like, I think that's a life lesson there, which is if you're going to do something, do it well. So how would I have done? I would have done terribly. But I actually asked the Haas coordinated they're not part of Skills Ohio, but they coordinated the test and the judging and all that. And I asked for the prints, and I got a copy of them, and I'm going to go learn myself and teach myself, and I think we're going to do a video on it, because I don't think it's what you should be marketing your confidence and skill sets on, is being able to, from memory, write long parts of code.
Right.
But I also think, I do agree that it's really helpful to know somebody, and to your point, yes, on lathe and on tweaking production stuff.
Right. Well, I remember taking a shop tour once of a shop that had probably 20 different Haas machines. This was 8 years ago, like really relatively early in my CNC days. I had just converted my 2 small machines to CNC, and I got to tour this shop of, awesome Haas machines all over the place.
Right.
And I saw guys standing next to the machine with a piece of paper, a print, and it had all the rads and dimensions on it, and they're typing in code by hand at the controller to make this part.
Right.
And I'm like, this is how people do it, some people. And as a CAM guy, I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous. Why, but this is how they went to school to learn it, and this is how they do it. And on one hand, it's really cool that they can stand there and look at some numbers, some dimensions, and just be like, oh, do. But yeah.
Yeah. But, if there are students listening to this, I would say there's 2 different angles here. One is that if that's what you're being judged by in school and that's what you need to learn, then darn it, learn it and do it well. Don't fight. Don't go into school and say, well, I've heard people don't need to learn G code, so I'm just going to do poorly in this section because there's CAM. No, if you're going to do something, do it well.
Yeah.
On the flip side, recognize that, and that's kind of my general criticism of anything that's regulated, whether it be the government or schools, is they're always behind. It's always difficult for them to be dynamic, and politicians get involved, and it's actually pretty amazing when you listen to the structure of how things like this get created, and they're not going to be cutting edge. And that's one of the things I love about YouTube and about the internet and the ability to, if you're a high school student, learn your G code, but then if you're in an interview, talk in the interview about how you got an A on your hand G code, but really what you enjoy is learning and watching John Grimsmo do custom Brenneshaw probing routines. Oh my God.
Yep.
Blown away, right?
Yep. See, you and I have grown our businesses and our entire lives by learning what we need to learn when we need to learn it. When you're in class, you're bombarded with everything, right? But you and I were like, okay, I want to make this. How do I do that? And then you figure it out, and we might consume, way more information than is necessary, but that's our choice. That's us falling down into the rabbit hole of figuring out how to do it and over-learning on purpose. But we didn't learn how to handwrite G code just because somebody told us to. Like, I know it. Right. I know just enough how to do it to do it. That's necessary for my business. So,
right, it's a tool.
Yeah,
it'll make it more or less. I think people. It's such a hot topic, and people go crazy. Like, oh my God, it's just a tool. And you can distill it even further. Well, okay, I don't bother learning. I don't bother learning all the memorized formulas behind trigonometry because I have a calculator that does tangent for me.
Right.
Sweet. What are you into today?
Today, I'm trying to make this part of my lathe that I haven't made in a long time because I made so many in the past. So I haven't made these little knife spacers on the
It'll be
Nakamura
easy
yet.
because you're just going to pull up the laminated process sheet and hit go.
Exactly. That hasn't been created yet. But yeah, so I'm dialing in the last kind of 5% of this product that I haven't made on the lathe yet. And I'm dealing with like chips wrapping around it. And that means I can't come in and probe it. And it's causing, even the sub spindle to not grab onto it properly. And I'm just trying to learn all these little tricks. Like, okay, if you're having chips wrap around the spindle or the part, what kind of fixes are there? Well, you can do your profile turn and then you can just reverse it without lifting at all and do the back profile, backwards. So that's what I'm going to try this morning. Is
what's the material?
Titanium.
Huh. It's stringy, huh?
Yeah.
Chip breaker is not an option in terms of running it harder or anything like that?
Yeah, I have an insert with, I believe it's a chip breaking insert, but it just makes strings. And I've got 300 psi of coolant in a through coolant tool holder that's aiming it directly at the insert tip, and it's still wrapping around.
I'm gonna wait until you come back to me with a picture of a fishing hook on like a spring that goes up to the part and like just drags over the top of it and just pulls the chips right off of it.
That's a great idea. No, one of my guys was telling me to reverse the spindle for this backwards pass to do an M4 so that it's unthreading the chip.
Well, and then could you have the tool start at the headstock with stay 1 thou per out of your OD and just walk across it that way?
I tried that and it skipped right over the chip, surprisingly, at 1 thou.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, so I'm going to try it at 0 thou. The OD dimension is not critical for me, so I'll just...
What did you just say?
Yeah, I said I'm realizing that dimensions are not all critical.
I've never heard that come out of your mouth before. No, but that's you still want it. It's a good, cool. Well, let me know we'll be curious to see how you get along with that.
Yeah, it should be good. So that'll be today's project.
Sweet.
All right, and you, real quick?
Real quick, what am I doing? That's a good question. I'm trying to do a little bit of filming. Got one job to run. I got to grind in my chuck on the grinder because I made a part yesterday, grounded. It was beautiful, but it's got some warpage. I think some of that is due to I'm starting to learn about relaxing the magnet and getting comfortable with how much I can relax it.
Okay.
But I never ground the chuck in because I wanted to make a part first before I go grinding into the chuck. But I've got enough confidence now to do that, so that's what's on tap.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's awesome, dude. Well, have a good Friday.
Yeah,
Crush
you
it,
too.
bud.
Crush it.
I'll
Bye.
see you. Bye.